I'd like to introduce you to the GS-911, a powerful emergency diagnostic tool specifically designed to diagnose BMW motorcycles. It's designed to run on your laptop, which is very helpful if you're in your garage at home, but useless if you're in the middle of the desert. That's why it's also designed to run on a very impressive range of cell phones, if it's a Windows operating environment or BlackBerry, or even the simplest of Nokias or Motorola's. You can download a free piece of software from the GS-911 website to check the compatibility of your phone. For the purposes of this demonstration, we've induced a fault which we know some of you have come across. So let's check out how this thing actually works. First, you've got to flip the seat on your bike. Second, let's remove the cap from your diagnostic connector and connect the GS-911. Slides on very easily like that, and it's ready to go. Grab your phone, fire up the application, select the series of your motorcycle. In this case it's obviously an R series, and then the range 1200 GS. You're now given the option to interrogate the 4 controllers on your motorcycle: the engine, ABS, electronics and instruments. Now, since the motorcycle doesn't want to start, it seems logical to me to get cracking with the engine controller. When you go in to diagnose the engine, you're given 3 options. You can have a look at the controller information, fault codes and real-time values. Now, these real-time values can be very handy. They check the kill switch, side stand switch and the clutch switch, which are often the culprits in this kind of situation. Let's go to controller information for now. Once you hit controller information, you're asked to double check that the ignition is switched on, neutral should be selected, kill switch is run, and your immobilizer and alarm, if you have one fitted, should of course be deactivated. Once that's all sorted, you simply hit OK. It double checks whether or not you want to continue. You simply hit yes. Now, you're probably thinking, what's the use of having controller information in the middle of nowhere? Good point. But it's crucial when you get back to your BMW mechanic, because it notes very important information, as you can see, like hardware information, software information, part numbers, etc. Let's now take a look at the fault codes. Simply hit select. I go through the same procedure as we did with the controller information. Check the ignition, neutral, kill switch, alarm, immobilizer. Hit OK. And there we have the culprit. It's fault code 10444. Now, the very handy thing with this tool is that it doesn't only give the code, but it gives a very concise description as well. In this case, you can see that the fuse is activated for component block 3, which drives the starter relay, immobilizer, ring aerial, ignition coils and injectors. Now, the key question is, how do I isolate the exact component which is to blame for this fault? The answer is simple. What we're going to do is we're going to unplug each component individually, and while that component is unplugged, we're going to cycle the ignition. And what that does, quite simply, is it retests the status of the fault. Now, seeing the injector's closest, let me get cracking with that. I unplug it, cycle the ignition, and get back to the diagnosis. And unfortunately, I can see that the error code is still present. Let's try the coil next. Cycle the ignition again, of course. Get back to the fault code. That seems to have solved it. We can see here, very importantly, that the fault is now no longer present. So, quite simply, the coil was to blame. All we have to do now is replace the components, with the exception, of course, of the faulty component, in this case, the coil, and we'll rerun the fault codes after cycling the ignition, hopefully for the last time. Let's see what happens when we do this. Good news. So what have I done? I've diagnosed the motorcycle. I can SMS the information, I can clear the fault codes. I can also save it for when I get to my trusty BMW mechanic at a later stage, which is of course very useful. But let me just say this. Don't think of this as a magic wand, but do think of it as a powerful electronic wrench that really should be part of any modern toolkit. All that's left for me now, however, is to get back to the adventure.